Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to take your action plan of what you need to do to achieve your goals, and we'll work on strategies to implement that. Basically, the first one is going to be taking your action plan. Say, for example, you are an athlete moving from a casual experience, maybe a minor club experience, and you want to develop into someone who's competitive at a club level or a regional or provincial level. Now, there, there's a really interesting uh, video put out by Zuna Muller, who has a site and does a lot of coaching videos, which basically it has a graph of high school students because he's appealing to high school students to get him to coach them and get money from that. Basically, what the graph he makes shows is that most people will follow along a continuum and I guess appeal to the average. So if you do what everyone else is doing, you'll only be as good as everyone else, unless you come into it being talented from the outset, right? If you just go through the motions, you're only going to get what the motions give you, and nothing more, nothing less. So if you want to become better, like if everyone's getting better at a certain level, they're just on a steady incline based on the average. If you want to get better than them, so if you want to move yourself up, you need to do something that's different in order to move yourself over them. It's it's pretty straightforward. The way most coaches approach it is to get athletes to get stronger, so to put in more hours. Now, everyone's kind of busy, and time is not cheap, right? You all have things that you'd want to do. I have things that I want to do, and everything has something that's in economics called opportunity cost. You know, by wanting to make your own dinner and get better at that, you miss out on a chance to um, maybe learn art, right? It's just like there are trade-offs in every situation. So, just putting in more time is kind of a, I don't know, a cop-out way of trying to push performance, particularly in rowing. It's not really a secret that miles make champions. That's totally true. But at the same point in time, once you reach a certain point, or any point, that's not no longer the straight case. Like, you need to be doing good miles, right? So the quality of what you're doing is very important. Now, moving up from a basic club level to a higher club level, putting in more kilometers, putting in more distance, doing more of the sport that you're in, rowing, or if you're doing other cardio or cross training, that will still benefit you. But the way you do it in many ways is more important than what you're doing, right? There is a way to approach things where you can increase the benefit that you get out of them without having to do more, right? And there is some investment. Like, you have to watch this sort of thing, right? You have to be interested in what you're doing. But that interest will pay dividends on itself. Like, you'll be able to do better at things. And generally speaking, this sort of approach works with almost anything you do. Time will pay off. But quality of effort is much more important, in my opinion, than quantity of effort. You know, there's something known as junk miles, right? Junk miles are miles that you put in that are pretty crap, and a lot of people would argue that junk miles are junk, but you can be said that if you're doing bad miles, like junk miles, it actually reinforces bad habits, right? So there's an argument to be made that sometimes doing more is actually worse. We're not going to get into overtraining today. It's not really on a docket, but that's an example of it. Basically, though, what I would recommend in almost any situation is to create a game plan for almost every practice. You know, create an idea of what would be the ideal practice in general. So just like think about it. What do you want? And most of the time, it'll probably be like, okay, I want the boat to feel like it's running out. I want to be happy afterwards. But think about, like, besides that, like, apart from that, what factors enable that? Do you need to come in fresh? Do you need to have a good day at school? Do you need to have sleep? Do you need to have people not stressing out? Those are all external factors and things that don't necessarily correlate. But keep in mind what would let you perform at your best. And what you want to do from the outset before you enter any practice is consider them. Right? You want to be able to operate without bringing in the biases that these things, these daily things affect you. But you also need to be able to perform with the understanding that they will affect you, because otherwise what you understand as being a good practice will be contingent on the ideal, which is not really, it's not applicable anymore. You know, we've reached the point in athletics where you can't just chase after the good and then grit your teeth and carry on. Particularly when the measurement points are so small. You know, it used to be with rougher measurement tools of work exertion and stuff that you would be able to just like push harder and that would be good, and if you didn't push harder by a slight margin, no one would notice. On the water you can do that, right? But the erg's a good example. If you look at it, if you're not doing good, you know. And a lot of times that's hard to reconcile. I mean, the base response to any issue on like the erg or in the water is to just push harder, which might not be what you're supposed to be doing in training, right? So come up with that idea of what you want the ideal like participation in the sport to be, like in singular session, and try and balance out a bunch of scenarios where things would be really good or really bad. That's probably the first major tool you can use to build better sessions, because afterwards analyzing that, just like sitting back and thinking, okay, so that went well, that went bad, and understanding the factors did contribute to that is probably the best you can do in the immediate to get things going.